Dang.
Outstanding. Yeah, let me try my other AirPods here for a second to get the background noise down. But
I got your volume, it seems, down, sir. I don't know if that's my system or if that's yours. I think it might be yours.
yeah, let me try.
You're muted, sir.
Master Oliver's muted.
Yeah, you're down too. It might be my system.
I'm not muted, am I? Greg is muted.
I am muted. I was saying, sir, you're not muted when I was muted. So
Yeah, the volume's down on my system, but you're all at the same level key. So
Okay.
my system.
Hopefully
that
we have all of
Wayne's
the
having trouble
tech
with,
things working fine now. The excitement of online conferencing, all of the tech and none of it works, and it's 99.5% human error. Anyway, before we get started, questions, thoughts, comments about anything we've done recently, or anything specifically you're having challenges with?
Hey, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I know you recommend, having classes indoors. Right now, we can officially open up for indoors. We've been doing fine with outdoor classes and with Zoom. Pretty much what I did is one of my locations, our lease expired. We moved out of that location. My second location was only 12 minutes away. Most people can make it at that location. And I've just been doing the days, one location's outside, the other location we're running Zoom, and just switching Monday through pretty much Thursday. And Saturday, we've combined the classes together. And it seems like most people are happy. There's a few people that are a little bit further away, et cetera, et cetera. But I was just trying to figure out how you're able to cast Zoom as the same time you're running regular class. Are you not paying attention at all to those guys? You're just running class and they're just following along? What kind of system do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And the first thing I was going to say is, why are you doing alternate days? And if you're going to basically merge the two locations, or even if you weren't, why not just have everybody on the same schedule together? Yeah, it was.
I mean, you are teaching the same thing at both schools, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it would be an easy combine.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but to go back to the first question, we just had our earlier meeting with some of the bigger schools with staffing and so forth. Is we just had this conversation nauseum for 30 minutes, and my take is that it's more labor intensive, and it's clearly more of a challenge to be running a live class, to be monitoring and working with people who are on Zoom, and then Master Moody's conversation added to that, giving directions and so forth for those who maybe aren't on the video live but are going to watch it by replay. So that's a third element that you want to be aware of as well. Part of it, I think, depends upon just physical equipment, right? If I've got the instructor who's well mic'd up, they got the headset mic, maybe these are iPod Pros or AirPod, whatever the hell they call them. There you go, AirPod Pros, those things. But if they're mic'd up properly, which would be a lavalier mic, it could be the headset mic, it could be something like this, so that the audio for the instructor is coming across adequately on the video feed. Master Moody, to summarize him, feels that one well-trained instructor can basically run the live class, run the video class, run the everything adequately for those who watched it live later, and be aware of those three. Master Smith, to paraphrase him, so we don't have to have the same debate, feels like you need to have an instructor paying attention to the video feed and an instructor paying attention to the live feed. Jan Lappin, in our conversation earlier, she had a problem, which, I mean, anybody who has staff can identify with this. She put an instructor in charge of the video feed who was supposed to be working with the people who were on Zoom. The instructor decided, oh, there's only 2 or 3 people on Zoom. And she jumped into class thinking she'd, take a look here and there. And then she ended up with some reactivation people who didn't know the former, just standing there, lost and confused, right? With basically nobody paying attention to her. So I do think there's several elements of this. And I'm not necessarily recommending people have to accelerate to be physically in the school. If anything, I have enjoyed and find great benefit in a lot of the things that we did to cope, which I think a lot learned while we had no choice are things that we want to keep forever, truth be told. But I think you've got to be aware of there's traditional remote learning components to this. So, whether it's through Google Classroom or Rev Marketing System, where you can post curriculum and people can learn on their own, and that can include replays of the class. And then there's live instructor-driven distance learning, which all the statistics I'm showing are showing that's the only way you keep retention, right? So if you're not paying attention and you're not giving them feedback and you're not doing some progress updates and taking attendance and giving them stripes and so forth, the dropout rate's extremely high. So there's those 2 elements. And then there's the element of, let's go down to the football field and, have 50 people or 100 people or 5 people, whatever it might be, but they're all spread out. They're outside. Nobody's particularly worried about, germs and so forth. And then there's, having classes back in the school. And, with that, there are areas in the country that still haven't technically reopened at all. There's areas in the country who opened the door completely and reopened, and then they had spikes and they're closing back down, for instance, in Texas, Florida, et cetera. California, sort of never reopened, and then they're tapping back down. So there's all these different iterations that we're dealing with, but regardless of like that situation, yeah, I think eventually we want to end up in all 4 or 5, however you want to count it. I think we want to be in appropriately social distance live at your school. And that includes check their temperature on the way in the door, require masks, give them disposable gloves if they want, have a big trash can for them to dispose everything on the way out. That certainly includes having the floor marked off so they're not going to get within, say, 6 feet of each other during class. Several of our members, and I agree completely with it, have looked into, and it's not all that cost prohibitive, of doing HEPA filter additions and UV additions to their HVAC system. So literally what they do is they cut out a piece of the ductwork that's on the exit, and they add in a big HEPA filter system, and they add in a UV ray that kills 99.9% of the germs coming through the HV as it circulates through the system. I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of I think you should be disinfecting the school between classes, and if necessary, you should be scheduling classes in the school by appointment so you don't end up with, frankly, too many people to maintain that social distancing. What I'm seeing a lot of facilities do, I've posted all those like CDC posters and stuff, but I would definitely have, the big poster at the front door that says, if you've been feeling ill, if you've been exposed to coronavirus, if you have a cough or sneeze, please take class on the live video feed rather than in the facility. Number 2, masks are required. Number 3, please wash your hands or use sanitizer on the way in to the facility. Number 4, don't wear gloves from somewhere else into the facility. I would have all of that stuff going on. What?
Temperature.
Yeah, check the temperature on the way in. Exactly. And you're going to have some of your students who think that's overkill, but I don't think that's going to dissuade them from coming to class. And you're going to have some students who still aren't comfortable coming to class with all of those things. But the vast majority are going to look at it and perceive you to be professional, and you're on top of things, and you're concerned about the students' welfare. But everything you do, if you do the HEPA filter, UV thing in the HVAC system, if you're disinfecting through the class, everything, make sure it's communicated broadly to everybody so that they know what's going on. Back to the main question though is, you cannot let the people who are on the live feed start to feel like second-class citizens, right? So what you don't want it to have, and there's 3 or 4 elements to it. We were having this conversation with Paul Pendergast earlier too, is he was saying his staff is kind of frustrated because they still have 25% of their students who haven't come into classes live at the school. And my take on it was that's the exact opposite reaction, is you don't want your staff to start pushing and cajoling and, you know, harassing, if for want of a better term, the students who are uncomfortable to get their butt back into the school, right?
And those 25 were on virtual.
Right, right.
25% was on virtual.
Right. So they weren't dropouts, but they were online. But his staff's take on it was, these are still people who haven't come back. And my take on it is, they're a live active student if they're attending on Zoom. I mean, some of it perhaps by replay, doing the assignments, getting the class credits, getting stripes, whether they come to the football field, whether they come into the facility, or whether they're on Zoom, or whether they're on Zoom and they're doing the other sport materials. Any of those iterations to me is they're an active student, right? And I'm not going to get frustrated, nor am I going to try to push it. But the element of how do you do that and keep track of those people, I think to some extent, going back to the mic conversation, is to some extent is technical, right? I mean, if you want to have the huge projector and you're projecting the Zoom video with all the little boxes, or I posted it, I was jealous of it. Tony Robbins did a big live cast, and he had like 4 monitors all together, and then he had monitors down below so he could monitor the feed, and then he had a monitor over here to cue him on what he was going to say, and then he had a paper pad over here for his notes. I mean, it is time, I think, that we recognize, one, that this isn't going away anytime soon, that the live video feed thing is something that we probably should have been doing already. Certainly in the context of enrollment conference, renewal conferences, it solves a lot of our get both parents, get the stepfather, get the divorced parents, get the grandmother in Poughkeepsie. It solves a lot of those problems of getting everybody together. But in order for one instructor to do that, you have to not have like the little iPod over in the corner with the camera pointed at him, and where he can't, really tell, what's everybody's doing and what's going on. You're going to have the big flat screen monitors or the projector or something like that. The alternative to that is you have an instructor who's coordinating and supporting the online, and you have the head instructor. What Jan was talking about, which makes total sense, is an instructor who could be giving additional feedback to people online while the class was going on. My take was put that person in the other room so they're not talking all over each other. Her take was, well, they're in the room, and they can give additional commands, while the instructor's taking breaths, or while other things is going on. Whatever works for you, I think, is fine. But you have to be totally aware, have somebody paying attention, so that you don't have students on the video feed who aren't paying attention. You don't have students on the video feed who are lost, and so that you're keeping them fully engaged at all times. Does that help a little bit, or did you want to take
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I was leaning towards having one instructor in with the classroom, and maybe one in a smaller room, just giving those guys feedback. This we can run it at the same time, so it'd be indoor and Zoom at the same time. Yeah. But the feedback I'm getting is most people really love the outdoor classes. We can run them pretty much here in New Jersey until September, October. So I was like, maybe we just keep running outdoor classes and keep doing Zoom indoors, and not even worry too much about getting them, inside the facility at the point. But I know eventually that's what's going to be needed. They're going to be needed to, come inside when the weather gets colder.
I don't have the issue with that at all. I think whatever intermediate point you can get where most people are comfortable, right? As there's an adaptation to Zoom, there's also an adaptation to the classes going on outdoors rather than it's at the school, right? I've got to be prepared for the appropriate classes to be able to do renewals. I've got to be prepared to do intros out in the grass and then enroll them. I've got to be prepared for all that stuff. So, and you know, I've done it years ago, or you know, many times, just for fun. But you've got to have your, you know, you got to have your box with your agreements and your, you know, all the stuff that you're going to need, and you got to have the clipboards, and you got to make sure you're prepared. So just become fun day in the park, and it really is, you know, normal business day, right?
Makes sense.
And then I guess the question is, an instructor inside that's teaching a different class, or projecting the live class and having somebody support the video feed. If it were me, I would rather have it, I'm projecting the live class and having somebody supporting the video feed, unless you're having problem with Wi-Fi or you're having trouble with a good internet connection. I think, as we've all discovered, Zoom and all the video conferencing things don't do well on, say, a cell signal, right? So if you can't pull off a good signal, maybe that's when you have to, you know, run in parallel. I do think running in parallel is an extra complication I would try to avoid if I can. Plus, you know, you're going to have more people who are watching, you know, taking the class at home on Zoom, who are desirous of coming into the school, or desirous of coming into the park if they're seeing everybody else in the park looking safe, having fun. So there is that
distancing and all of the, yeah, that's going to draw them in. They're going to say, well, look, Bobby's in there, and if he can go, I can go, that kind of thing. And Scott, did that answer some of your questions, or did you have some more spaces to fill in there?
I think so. Yeah, I think my general question was really, you know, how to optimize Zoom. You know, I was putting it off here, just thinking that the Zoom was going to go away, which of course that's not going to happen. So, you know, is it worth sinking some money into it? I think he just kind of answered that.
And I that's the best thing that can happen, is the Zoom not go away.
Yeah. Finish the thought there, Scott.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing was, I don't know if you answered it already, but it seemed to me, in my experience, we were better on Zoom when we only had to do Zoom.
Right.
Teaching the noise in the class and the kids yelling. You know, so I spent the whole significant amount of time today seeing how to optimize Zoom. But then the next question is, should that be sequestered off into a separate room? I don't have it. I mean, I can set it up, but I don't have it.
Again, we're all exploring a strange new world here, but my belief is you're better off, one, to invest money in equipment, right? Upgrade the cameras, upgrade the computer systems if necessary, get better mics that are what do you call it, remote. Yeah, get lavalier, you know, I'm not sure the other systems work on Bluetooth, but, you know, mic up the instructor. If I have an iPod, you know, an iPad on a tripod, and it's behind where the main class is, and it's trying to pick up the instructor between there, and it's picking up the kids yelling and everything else, yeah, I've got a bad feed, right? On the other hand, if I've got the instructor on a lavalier mic or a headset, or, you know, even on whatever the hell these are called, AirPod Pros, that's going to give a less background noise, less problems with the audio feed, right? And then the other thing is, you know, back in March and April, setting the iPad up on a tripod was good enough, right? Everybody gave us a lot of credit for trying, and we were doing, you know, we were just adapting as we're doing it. Given that I believe this is here to stay, at least it's here to stay, you know, this time next year, I don't think in December or in January things are suddenly going to change, right? So I think the remote thing is going to be here with us for a while. And given that it's going to be here with us for a while, I think it's worth, you know, investing in, you know, getting a better camera, maybe bringing some people in if you don't know to do a little bit better, more professional setup. Look at the lighting in the school. Maybe I need a little bit better lighting on the instructor at least, so people can see what's going on. Maybe you need a big projector, or maybe you need an 80-inch flat screen or whatever. Then, by the way, that stuff is relatively inexpensive anymore. I was just at Costco, and they have these like wall-sized TVs for $1,200 or something. It's amazing. So I think it's worth investing some money, especially in mics, cameras, and lighting. I think it's worth having
TV. TV.
Yeah, and monitor. And perhaps, I've heard a couple of our members who are using computers that were, 9 years old. You got to have a decent processor and so forth to monitor some of this stuff. It's not all that processor intensive, but you might need to upgrade. But it's worth investing the money to have good audio, to have good video, and to be able to monitor the students. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think it's also worth the time and effort. And we haven't spent much time at this at all, because I was trying to, frankly, it's kind of like the federal government telling people not to wear masks back in March. I was trying to get everybody centric on interactive and paying attention to the students, not on let's send them a clip of a video, right? But it is useful to build out that remote learning piece, right? So that they can go on and review the classes as a replay. They can go in, Master Moody was calling it on demand, like Netflix. They can go view it on demand. They can go pull different pieces of it. And going all the way back to the 70s, June Reed did this with the Daily Dozen and with the warm-ups. He did videos and little, film clips and all this stuff, so they could do 12-minute workout every day on their own at home. So all of that stuff is useful. We just know it doesn't replace the face-to-face interactive, right? So I would invest time and effort into the software and into the remote stuff at this point. I would invest some money into the cameras, mics, monitors, and so forth. And, have somebody who knows something about video and online video come in and tweak it up for you. I'm pretty knowledgeable about all that stuff, and I've researched it a lot. I even took a couple of weeks of video production classes, and still really what I should do is hire somebody, to come in and set it all up for me and, show me how to do it. Right. So I would do that. Now, as far as, we probably addressed it already, but do you have it in a separate room? I would really like to avoid having like a complete instruction team and a separate room where we're only doing video classes, and then classes in the school, and then classes in the park. I'd really like them to all be integrated, right? In part because maybe I don't want to push them and harass them and expect them to come back to class. But if somebody's seen 50 people in the park and it looks like a lot of fun and it looks really safe, they're much more likely to show up to that next time, right? Then you've got somebody in the intro room and you got 50 people in the park having a great time, and you've got 5 people on video or 10 people on video with an instructor in the intro room. I think just the dynamics of the esprit de corps, the dynamics of the excitement of what's going on, the excitement of transitions back and forth, you're better off to try to have it all be integrated.
Master Oliver, I would say you've given them a really good list of everything to do. The other thing is don't hold back, don't stop until you get all that stuff done before you implement stuff. As we probably would tell everybody with everything we're telling you, ready, fire, aim is the process here too. And then as you're doing that, then go get the big screen TV, and then go get the next thing set up, and then go get, because everybody's pretty forgiving if your technical isn't that big, it isn't perfect. If your lighting isn't perfect or your audio isn't perfect, whatever, people are pretty forgiving about that. Just then fix it as you go.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, also in April, some of this stuff became hard to come by, right? Because the whole world went to video conferencing. So getting, I don't care whether it was green screens or I tried to order a couple of pro cameras and they were unavailable for 3 months. I'm still waiting for a couple. So most of that stuff is available now, right? They ramped up production and the initial demand fell off. Overall, it's not that big of expense. But the other thing is, I think the things you can do with the facility to make it obvious that you went above and beyond. I was in a restaurant recently, and I was aware of the paper towel holder, you had to go like this, and the soap dispenser, you had to go like this. And, they hadn't made any accommodations like that. So, the automatic paper towel holder, the automatic soap dispenser, the automatic dispenser for, for hand sanitizer. I would do all those things. Most people aren't going to notice, but somebody who's, halfway intelligent and aware picks up on those things, right?
And when you send pictures of it to your students to let them know how you're doing it, you can say our bathrooms are now, all hands free, because that's what they're most concerned is about, touching kind of thing. So when you have that automatic hand dryer, you got the automatic sanitizer, I think, and even the water faucet, where you just put your hand under it, it's almost, we've got to go that direction. And, yeah, that's an extreme, but it just depends on how large a staff you have, and how large of a student body you have, and what you can afford of that.
Yeah.
Do what you can when you can.
Right. But, and don't miss the fact that anything you do like that, tell everybody about it, right? I was in a different restaurant. They actually had put the little foot thing on so you could open the door with your foot without having to touch the handle. Well, that's cool. It costs $5, and they put a little sign, open the door with your foot. Cool, right? So, I spend $5 on the door on that, and I get the little automatic hand soap, and I get the little automatic hand sanitizer, and I get the automatic
Water.
paper towel thing, and I get rid of and I get the automatic faucet so that I don't have to, do that to get it to go. And I get rid of the blow dryers crap. But you go through, it is interesting, by the way, how all of the stuff that the greenies were pushing before all went away as soon as there was a pandemic. You can't do disposable bags anymore. Of course, the non-disposable, the cloth bags. And the cloth bags were always a mythology anyway. The amount of energy that it uses to make the thing and the amount of energy it uses to dispose it far exceeds the plastic disposables. Mythology and ignorance. But yeah, communicate all those things that you do. And again, Paul Miller was saying that he did the, and I was familiar with it because I had looked at it and not yet done it for my house. But you can just call the HVAC guys and say, I'd like to look at a commercial HEPA filter and UV system for the HVAC system. His number was like 4,500 or 5,000 per location, but that was based on 3 units and 10 or 12,000 square foot per location. So $1,500, $2,000 per unit. And that's going to add a significant benefit. And it's something that
students know all of that. You've got to talk about it. That's what the airlines is even doing on the planes. They put in these new systems that are supposed to filter all that out, because a lot of people were concerned about that. That even, there's so much of those germs circulating in the plane.
Well, that's the thing. I was on Southwest on the way to Skipper Mullen's funeral, and they were really good about, a lot of people are concerned about the air on a plane, but it recirculates the entire plane in every 10 seconds, and it's got, a better HEPA filtration and so forth, and intensive care unit at the local hospitals. They had a real nice pitch on why they were doing a really good job with that.
And that gives the people peace of mind to know, well, next time I fly, I'm definitely going to be on Southwest, because I don't think American has that, or any other airline that doesn't say they have it, even if they have it.
Yeah. Well, that's a classic advertising example. It was actually a beer, Miller beer or something like that years ago. But they ended up building the entire ad campaign about the way they did the brewing and the production. And the executive said to the ad guy, I think it was David Ogilvy, they said, well, everybody does that. He says, well, yeah, but I didn't know it, and nobody else knows it, and they don't talk about it. So if we stake out the position of we're the ones that do you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Scott, is that good, or did you need something else on
No,
that?
that really nails it. I really appreciate
And,
it.
you know, one other thing that Master Moody said today that resonated with me that I hadn't really thought of before.
Master Moody, would you record the timestamp on that so we can keep that one?
What did
That's something you said resonated with him.
Oh, he says that on occasion.
In a good way.
Okay.
See,
We
this isn't in
don't
a bad
argue
way.
all the time.
You know, when he said that he calls, and what did you word it? It was like their Netflix.
On demand. So
On demand.
yeah. So we have classes, in person, virtually, and also on demand. So it's like Netflix for the school.
And the on demand, you know, that really opened another can of ideas for me. You know, I thought, now that we record every class and we send it to the students, if we let them, you know, let's say they don't like to get on the Zoom meeting for whatever reason, internet connection, or they can't hear or whatever, but now they get that video and they can play that back and they can actually practice and go through it that whole hour and mark it down on their homework card that they went, you know, 45 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever your class length of time is. And then we actually count that towards their class credits. Now, some people would say, well, they're just going to put that down. Well, they could do that on their character worksheets, just put stuff down. You know, martial arts is the honor system. But the good thing about doing curriculum, if they aren't practicing it, and then it's going to show when they test, because when they test for another belt, they still have to reach a certain level of proficiency. So if they're just writing this down that they did it and they never practiced it, it's going to show up on their test. But the idea would be to give them credit for practicing for the whole class, even if they do it on the on-demand version. And I think that would help a lot of parents to say, oh, well, it's okay. We don't have to try to follow along with the class while they're doing it. We can watch it later at our convenience and still get credit for it, which can help us get to the next belt level, which is going to help us get to the black belt.
Yeah, and Master Mooney, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rev Marketing podcast platform.
Well, the Rev Talks
that
platform,
right?
which is the podcasting and the virtual platform.
There you go. Well,
does all that.
the virtual platform will track their attendance of having viewed the video on demand, right?
Right, and they can post like if they did character worksheets, or they did however your system works. They can they can check some boxes and they post their points, and then you can get notified of what points they post, and then you get an email for that, so you don't have to like go in the system and look for it. You get notified whenever they do something.
I like that. So that just adds another whole level of interaction that I think can get the students more engaged and give us a way to find out who is more engaged and who isn't.
Yeah, and as long as you're not relying on that to be the primary way you're keeping track of them and giving stripes and belts and so forth.
Yeah, we still do.
Yeah, but then that gives them the ability to make up a class on their own time, to not fall behind in lessons and so forth. I still want to be, again, an example. I may have used this one before. Well, it was Monday, so I haven't with this group. But I was talking to a school owner, and who was not a member, and I said, well, so what's happened during the the last few months with your active count? We were at 400, and I think it was 20 students before, and we're at 300 and 300 now. Yeah, 318, whatever, a little over 300 now. And then I said, well, are those people who have actively attended virtual classes? He said, no, we've had 200 actively attend virtual classes, and facility-wise, they've been completely shut down. So it's virtual class or nothing, right? So what he was counting, the difference here between being down by half and being down by 25% was everybody whose EFT went through that haven't requested or that hasn't been canceled, even though they haven't come into class, right? See, to me, that's not an active student. Now, it is an important number to know. It's important to know here are people who are still paying who aren't attending, because those are people I want to get back in class. It's also important to know here are people who are actively attended who are a month or two delinquent, and I have different activities with both of them. With the one who's delinquent, progress update, make sure everything's good, make sure they're happy that they're on track, and then I work on fixing their payment issues in whatever way makes sense. The ones that I know are paying that are inactive, obviously I've got to get them back into class. The ones that are inactive and not paying, I also know not to chase them down for money before I get them back in attendance and engaged, right? So they give me a different path. But for me, what I heard is I was at 420 and now I'm at 200. And so now the other part of that, which I think some people, especially, folks that are talking to us now that are new or are new into the program, a lot of times they miss the fact that if I had 400 in February, and let's say I've been losing 5% a month, so I lost 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. Of course, it compounds itself, but let's say that's 23% over 4 months of 400. Well, now I'm down to 300, just with natural attrition if I'm not adding as many new students as I'm losing. That's just the way a martial arts school goes, right? And the people I was talking to, they were probably losing 7% a month. So their attrition was less about coronavirus than it was about they just haven't been doing enrollments while this thing's going on. So you've got to keep those two factors in mind. There's no such thing as ever stopping to add enrollments and keeping your active count steady, because I've yet to see anybody who has 0% attrition. There's always somebody who's moving to the Caribbean, moving to India, who broke their leg. There's always that kind of stuff that you can't control no matter how good you are. And then frankly, no matter how good somebody is, best I've ever seen was 0.7% a month. But realistically duplicatable, you can get to 1.5%, 2% a month. Probably industry average is closer to 9 or 10% a month. Bill Clark says the ATA average is 7% a month. I believe is that the right number, Master Mitty?
My data says it's 8.6%.
Okay, almost 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's better than most schools that aren't tracking it. They just don't know.
Well, it's the typical MMA problem. Is a lot of the MMA schools developed by looking at fitness centers, and so they're tracking whether somebody's active or not by whether the EFT cleared, not by whether they actually have been in class twice this week. And what you want to be like an elementary school. If the student misses the class, you're immediately communicating with them to get a makeup. If you want, Nick O'Keefe's old line was prophylactics versus therapeutics. You want to be on top of their interest of slipping. You want to be on top of they look less engaged. You want to be on top of they go from 3 classes a week attendance to 2.3 to 1.8 to 1.3. You want to be able to see those trends that they're slipping, so you catch them before they fade out.
And
go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so my next question was about this, re-engagement campaign that we talked about yesterday. You mentioned gifting. Can you give me some more pointers, perhaps, on just, I don't know, anything, verbiage, gifts? What sort of procedure should I follow when it comes to getting these people who haven't been engaged in a while trying to fix this thing? What should I do?
Well, let's take a year ago how the world looked versus right now, right? Is on an ongoing basis, just so we don't miss the point, it's much more difficult to get somebody back in who's been gone for 3 months than it is to keep them from being out the door to begin with, right? And that's why somebody who has a system where they first call them and check on them if they missed class after, say, the third week, really is getting to them once they're already in the habit of not attending. So on an ongoing basis, what we want to do is catch them when they come Tuesday, Thursday, and they miss the Tuesday class, not catch them at the second week, third week, fourth week. And even more so, we want to make sure we're catching that they're not turning in the assignments, they're not getting stripes on time, they're not fully and actively engaged. Admittedly, the last 4 months is a different environment, right? And the different environment is, government closes things down. Maybe we didn't over communicate early on. We never got them onto the first Zoom class, whatever it might be. But we have people who are missing in action, not because they faded out, but because the world changed and school got canceled or went virtual, and they assumed that fitness, martial arts, dance, pools, everything was closed, and they got basically put into house arrest for 4 months, right? So getting those people back is different, because it's not that we let them, fade out. It's that just the world freaked them out and we didn't get them adjusted. And that's why my suggestion was something like, 10 of cookies, go to Mrs. Fields and with a little note, hey, we missed you in class. Give us a call so we can give you the full range of options. And then a little personal note of, hey, we've missed you. And by the way, I've enclosed, here are all the classes that are live at the school. Same classes are simulcast on Zoom. The same classes are on demand at this link at all times. And by the way, every Saturday we're at the football field for outdoor classes, whatever it is you're doing. But, the little personal note. And then you can do the fake personal note. So you can do, legal pad written out in Sharpie, make black and white copies, then write their name in Sharpie so it looks like it's personal, right? And you can do something like send out cards where they let you do your handwriting font and then make it look handwritten. But the basic communication is what it was to begin with. It's just, we missed you in class, we'd like to get you caught up, and we have all of these ways of participating right now. We have social distanced in the school, and just like that original letter we sent when we were transitioning the other way, here's all the things that we're doing at the school. I mean, you led the way on that, Scott. So, hand sanitizer and washing your hands and 6-foot distancing and masks are required. We just put the new HEPA filter and UV system in, and we're checking temperatures on the way in, and we're doing all the classes, all these classes in the park, and we're doing the entire class schedule simulcast live, and we're doing all the classes that are simulcast live on demand, and we have these additional resources. So you just do all of that, but the call to action is always, please give a call so I can make sure we get you completely up to speed on all that stuff, right? Now, in addition to that, a year ago or now, the only way that outside of this anomaly, this black swan event, the only way I've ever found that you really get a good job of reactivation of people who have been gone 3 months, 5 months, 6 months is you just keep them in the loop on everything. So they're getting a invitation to the graduation party. They're getting an invitation to the Black Butt extravaganza. They're getting an invitation to come be a spectator at the intramural tournament. They're getting an invitation to the buddy day, the movie night, all that kind of stuff, right? And, it used to be the big deal. Everybody talked about doing the school newsletter. Well, for your existing students, the school newsletter is only useful for recognition and for calendar, right? But for inactive students, it's extremely valuable just to keep reminding them of all the things they're missing, right? So the biggest value of doing a monthly or a bi-monthly newsletter is all of the recognition is basically a testimonial. All of the reminder of the calendar of events and all that stuff is a reminder of all the cool stuff that was going on. So for people who have been gone, whether they've been gone 6 months, whether they've been gone a year, 2 years, whatever, I like to have every event we do at the school, they get an invitation. Every month or twice a month, they get a mailing about all the cool stuff going on in the school as if they've never left. And then periodically, we just make a blitz of, there's a, hey, don't be a lone ranger, get back into class. And we have a special makeup day for anybody who's missed a while that we want to catch up. So something like that. That having been said, somebody who's been gone a year is probably no more likely to get them back than they were a Facebook lead a year ago, right? Except for this Black Swan event, just because a lot of them ended up fading out because the whole world changed underneath them, right? And maybe they didn't get, I see this with my 12-year-old, trying to get him on some of the Zoom thing is it just, it's one thing to be in the schedule every Tuesday, Thursday, we go drive down to the school. It's something else to shift it and figure out where you put the computer and what you do. And, oh, by the way, it's starting in, 3 minutes. That's a little different mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That's very helpful.
The only thing that I would add in there, Master Oliver, because there's a lot of people that when they get, and I'm not talking about somebody who missed a month, but I'm talking about somebody who's missed, 3 months, or, they haven't been in since the pandemic started. I would address a separate letter to them about, and addressing it, all those things he said, but also say, I would address the financial part, because I feel that that's why a lot of people don't want to come back, because they say, oh, we owe all that money. There's no way we can make all that up.
Yeah,
I would
make that one clear, Master Smith. That's what we were talking about, those 3 categories. This is their inactive and delinquent is what he's talking about, right? Not that they were inactive and paying their tuition. This is the inactive and delinquent group.
Yeah, I'm saying for the ones that are 3 months or more that are
behind in their payments,
that we know they aren't going to come back and make those payments up. I would do a forgiveness and let them just come back and take up from where they left off and start with their new payment to come back. I mean, actually say it that way, that you're going to, we want to give all those people an opportunity, because we didn't have live classes available. We do have that now, but if you're not comfortable with that, we still have the virtual. We still have the on demand that we can send to you. We still have the park that we do. And if one of those fits for you, and we'd like to see you come back and continue your goal towards your black belt, we remember the interest you've shown, and would like to see you back on track with that goal and experience all those positive benefits. So, do that part of it and say, so to help you financially in that process, we're letting those students come back and just pay their, next month's tuition, and then you're good to go. And those other payments will, we'll let, whatever word that, to let them go.
Well, waive that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you have 2 categories. Let's say that I've paid for 3 months and haven't attended at all. So what I'm addressing is, we're going to give you full credit for everything that for the last 3 months. And, keep in mind, going in, we were giving them 2 months credit for every month that it was virtual. So I wouldn't have any trouble with doing that. We're, you've paid for 3 months that you haven't been attending. We're going to give you, those 3 months credit, plus we're going to double it. And then the other group is, which is frankly the more difficult. That's why Master Smith points that out. The more difficult is, I haven't been showing up and my payment's been bouncing, right? And they oftentimes they don't come back in, not because they don't like you, it's because they're embarrassed about the finances, right? So doing that
a special letter just for them.
Yeah, what I was thinking about is doing the, where you're waiving the fee, whatever the word is I'm trying to pull up, where you're waiving that form is important.
Isn't that hard for us to say?
Yeah, that you know, there's a word I was
We don't
trying to
know the
come up.
words because we have never done it before.
No, we've done it, but that
I do that all. I mean, I would do that all the time to get people back
Yeah.
in if they're willing.
exactly.
The problem
Yeah,
is, I think 100% it's embarrassment.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so what you want to do is with those people, the language, back to what you're asking, sir, is you want to make the language, look, don't feel bad. An awful lot of people got out of cycle with this craziness going on, and an awful lot of people got whacked financially with this thing going on. We recognize that, and are you know, very sympathetic with that. You know, from the financial side, you know, just, you know, zero that out. And if you're still having financial difficulties, let's get started back, and then we'll chat about that on how to cope with that as well, right? Don't let lack of attendance be dependent upon, you know, the finances, right? So, you know, and this has to be personalized a little bit if you're going to do it that way. But you know, I've often done it where it's, you know, you're 3 months delinquent in the payments and have been out of class for 3 months. We're going to have to, you know, get you caught up. We're just going to wipe out the payments that you're delinquent. It's at zero. And then moving forward, if you have some ongoing challenges, you know, please talk to us about that. But it's important you get back into class, and then we'll work out the finances. We don't want to have a burden on that, but we want to have some consistency. So language like that about it, right? But in all cases, I do find all of us tend to be cheap on how much we'll spend on a prospect and cheap on how much we'll spend on a student outside of kind of the normal range of, you know, they need bag gloves and a jump rope and the uniform or whatever, right? But what's appreciated more than giving them a pair of gloves is they get cookies for their birthday. They get, you know, a certificate for their favorite restaurant. They get, you know, that kind of gifting. There's a great book, by the way, called Giftology about this. It's more of a business to business tone, but it's a really good book regardless. But think about if a gold belt drops out, and now I get that gold belt back in, and then 3 months later I get that gold belt renewed, right? That gold belt is potentially worth $25,000, but on average that gold belt's going to be worth 5 or 6,000, right? So is it worth spending $100 to gift them and to mail to them and so forth to get them back in? Sure. I mean, you certainly should be able to spend and willing to spend as much on getting a student back in as you were to get a student to begin with, right? And, you know, I've always said, you know, if I get them to pay $500 when they enroll and I can get it to cost me $500 to get one, I'm tickled to death, right? So, but those type of things are more received and more appreciated, and the reciprocity kicks in. What people don't appreciate, and maybe they did. I mean, there was a company here in Colorado that AOL bought years ago called Blue Mountain Cards, and you guys may remember the concept early on in the internet. You know, it was a big deal. You send somebody a link for a birthday card, and it was a personalized singing duck or something. You know, happy birthday to you. Well, I don't see that anymore because nobody gives a shit anymore. They know it's automated, right? So what people don't appreciate is they don't appreciate the automatic repetitious text messaging that comes from the machine, the email, you know, your son has missed class. You know, what I get from my son's school is I get an automated voicemail, and the computer, my daughter's name is Jada, but spelled Jaeda, so the computer can't pronounce it right. So I would always get the automated message, you know, your daughter, Jada, Don Marie, you know, nobody appreciates that, right? What they appreciate is their picture in their mind of you sat down and sent them cookies, and then you send them a personal note, and they got a voicemail that's personalized. That's the type of thing that they appreciate. And it's certainly worthwhile to spend time on that, right? But again, you know, a mass mailing to everybody, hey, it's been crazy and get back in here. That's great. You know, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but they're not going to feel a warm, fuzzy feeling when they open the, you know, the postcard or read the postcard that went out to 100 people with a bulk mail stamp on it. You want to have those more personal and gifting type of pieces and outbound personal calls, etc. It's also why, you know, although we all love digital, is digital communication is massively discounted anymore, right? Is, you know, if you listen to the normal flow of the world, they'll say, why are you mailing stuff? Why are you calling them? You know, people don't call each other anymore. People don't mail each other anymore. You know, the world thinks that the world is digital and you should be tweeting at them or something. But the fact that there's all that stuff means that there's very low value attributed to any of it. Good?
Sir, I do have a couple questions real quick.
Go right ahead.
So one, I do want to thank you guys. Yesterday, you guys gave me some really good advice about a student that was, you know, I messed up the process with her dad and her stepdad and everything. So I dealt with that situation yesterday, ended up working fantastic. You know, trying to get the dad integrated into everything that we're doing at the school. The daughter had an awesome time. She was re-engaged into what we're doing. He got to, you know, see it. So it ended up working really well. I took your advice, Master Smith, and I gave him the folder and kind of redid the intro lesson from there. So that went really, really well yesterday. So thank you guys for that.
Good, Samuel. And by the way, congratulations to you.
Sure.
Because the same level of me beating you up, we've had a couple of people implode in flames by getting direct and honest critiques in the last couple of months. So, you know, success skill number one is being able to hear what the real problem is rather than getting the answer you want, right? There's a meme that goes around the internet of, you know, people don't want your opinion. What they want is you to parrot their opinion. But that's a sure route to failures. But, you know, kudos to you for one, you know, being open-minded and listening, but two, then you have a success story. And obviously you were engaging and involved and really turned that one around.
Sure. Now, the question I have, because this whole pandemic thing has really shown all the chinks in our armor. I think that we were at one point, we were kind of coasting along. We were kind of moving steadily in the right direction, not as quickly as I'd like to, but I feel like we got way too comfortable, and this shock to our system and the massive drop we had was like, wow, a lot of our guys were not indoctrinated the way we thought they were.
Yeah.
So our whole thing now is our mindset is, you know, we're trying to reach out to the guys we've been reaching out to since things have started. But a lot of our parents aren't, some of them have just completely like not got back to us at all. So our mindset at this point, you know, with everything just kind of getting back to what we want it to be and us trying to boost up hires, I don't want to say we want to forget them, but we're kind of just trying to move forward. We sent out an email to just poke and prod. If you're still interested in training, if this is something you want to come back to, let us know. If not, we've got a couple emails. Some parents said no. You know, the way we are right now, the way the world is right now, whatever the case may be, they don't want to do it. Our main thing is kind of trying to move forward, get the guys who have stuck with us because we know that they value the program, they appreciate what we're doing, double down with those guys, grab up 100 new students and, you know, then keep the train rolling in that regard. So my main thing is, how do I want to get in touch with the schools. Yeah, I'm doing something small now with the schools at the park. I have like 6 kids going to the park right now from the school, but how do I get that really going, especially with the school system being in flux the way it is right now?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah, I do. Let me go back to the getting people back in.
Yes,
right?
sir.
I personally despise, you know, what was called at its inception asynchronous communication.
Sure.
Asynchronous communication meaning I send you a message, 2 hours later you send me a message, back and forth, right?
Yes, sir.
What I don't like about incoming emails from students is, and especially the ones who like respond to a broadcast, is whatever it says oftentimes is they're sitting at the dentist office on their iPhone, and they're not putting much time and thought into it. Maybe they're in a pissed off mood, maybe they're in a good mood, maybe they're distracted. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that go in to somebody just immediate reacting to something that doesn't have much to do with what's really going on in their life, right?
Sure.
It's why, like, you know, an angry student email, you know, I'm usually somewhere between deleting it and letting it sit for a few days before acknowledging it, you know, just to let the moment pass. But the thing that you want to do with these people who have bailed out during the pandemic is you want to make sure that you go way above and beyond showing them safe ways that they can get back in training, right? So you're out in the football field, everybody's wearing masks, they're getting their temperature checked on the way in and all that stuff. I mean, it's hard for anybody rational to object to that. And you have your full class schedule on Zoom. And I know some of them say they don't like Zoom. But so what? You know, with the ones that say they don't like Zoom means they weren't engaged enough, you know, to do that. I mean, my 12-year-old son, I mean, if I let him, he'd spend 12 hours a day on YouTube. So it's not like, you know, it's not like they have attention span. And by the way, if you don't know, Joe Rogan, you know, the commentator for UFC, he has a podcast. Anybody who hasn't paid attention,
I love the
his podcast. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. No, I love that podcast. I know what you mean.
I hadn't paid any attention until fairly recently, but his podcast will be like 3 hours, right? Everybody's saying, you know, like if you watch TV, they have, you know, 7-minute segments with 4 different people arguing with 2 sentences each, and hear his podcast. And by the way, I think it was Hulu. Somebody just paid him $100 million to shift platforms. Spotify. There you go. Spotify. For sitting down for 3 hours with people, right? And by the way, there's no dancing girls, there's no cut in, there's no A roll, B roll. It's just 2 people sitting there talking to each other. So the reality is, if people are engaged and interested, it doesn't have to be short. It doesn't have to be all of that type of stuff. But I wouldn't give up on those people too easily.
Sure.
What I would do is I would address their concerns. So, you know, you have one letter that goes out about all the things you've done at the facility to make it, you know, coronavirus compliant and safe. And then all the different ways that people have thrived. You know, like Paul Pendergast, for a while, we were posting all these different testimonials he was getting. You know, if you send somebody 50 testimonials about how valuable and how thankful they are for all the things you've done, you know, during the coronavirus and how exciting and involved classes are, you gradually kind of break that down, right?
Sure.
But, you know, if I start communicating, well, we have everything on demand, and we have, you know, distance learning materials that includes all this stuff, and we have the classes all simulclassed live by Zoom, and we're having, you know, this schedule for the next 2 months that are outdoors in the park, you know, in the sunlight, everybody spread out, and then we have all of these things we've done at the facility, but we're also doing 6-foot distancing, mask, etc. Well, you know, sooner or later you start breaking down those barriers, right?
Yes,
So yeah, I wouldn't give up on those guys, but that doesn't mean, yeah, you want to go get 100 students, right?
Yes,
Go get 100 new students. I just wouldn't give up on those guys too easily.
Okay, sir. So still keep them on the email list. Still keep that dripping on them, even if they say now.
Yeah. Now listen to the subcontext of that. Screw email.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. The only time that email has been good in the last 3 years has been the last 4 months.
Yes, sir.
No, I'm serious about that, right?
Yes, sir. That's true.
You know, think about the movie, you know, You've Got Mail. You got Tom Hanks, I think it was Meg Ryan, sitting at their, I think it was AOL, you know, waiting for the mailbox to go, you got mail. Well, what are people's emotional reaction to email right now. Well, I got 222 emails that came in today. Oh my God, I guess I have to go look in case there's something important, right? Even when people look at email nowadays, they're already pissed off that they're having to do it, right? You know, the thing that you want to do doesn't mean don't do email. It's free, whatever. But personal mail, personal calls. I know a lot of them don't answer the phone and don't get back to you, but you know, Master Moody's acronym, and I hate acronyms, whatever the fuck it is, but it's, you know, call, leave a voicemail,
CTE.
text, and then what is it?
CTE, call, text, email,
CTE. Yeah.
and mail. CTE and mail.
Steve LaValle and all, I always had this conversation. He had an
CTM.
yeah, whatever.
CTE
He had
because you
yeah.
always can, if somebody calls if there's an appointment, somebody calls and I'm setting an appointment, I can always CTE. I can always call, text, email. Sometimes I can't mail before the appointment tomorrow. So I always can do that. So you replace anywhere in your system of calls, it always has to be call, text, and email. And you should also mail every opportunity you get.
Which implies you left a voicemail also. But I was going to say, Steve LaValle and I always had this because he had a freaking acronym for everything. And I just like to give it a description where you automatically understands. But what it reminds me of, there was this great movie. Actually, Jeff, Jody was in it when she was in boot camp in the Army. The one with, what's his name? Joe Piscopo or Joe Pesci, the little round guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's a high powered executive who takes a job teaching on an Army base and has all these, you know, all these like moron recruits. Remember that one? But there's a great scene on the way in where he's, you know, civilian coming on the Army base, and he asks how to get to where he's supposed to go. And this, you know, this really sharp Army guy gives him all these things, but he says, go down to the CBO2 and the CBT and go to take a left at the BQO, right, or whatever. And he's just completely confused. And then the end shot of the movie is somebody asks him the question. He does the same jargon. I always think that jargon confuses people, but I just don't like acronyms. Yeah, I used to harass LaValle in.
Now we've been getting a lot better at the call, texting, and email, but I like I don't think we do enough like personal, physical mail. So that's definitely something we need to be plussing. So
saying nobody does.
Sir.
Nobody does, because you've got to like buy the stuff and you've got to write it, and then you got to put a stamp on it, and you got to put in. I mean, you know, it's a pain in the ass. And the good thing about, you know, you've got Send Out Cards, Amazing Mail, other apps like that, is they help you get stuff out in the mail quickly. Nobody's going to confuse something from Amazing Mail as being terribly personal. Although if it's a follow-up from a birthday party, you can put all the kids' pictures on it. Or if it's a follow-up from an intro, you can put the kid's picture on it or something.
Right.
But you know, nothing replaces having a stack of note cards on the desk and writing 5 personal or 10 personal notes every night. And again, I remember having this conversation with Tim Kovar years ago, and they had he had this elaborate printer set up, this elaborate software, and the kids were getting, and I did the same thing. They were getting a congratulations letter. Junior Institute did the same thing, a congratulations letter signed every test and so forth. And he had said, well, I figured it really wasn't worth the effort. And then we went to visit this family because dad was sick or something. And mom took me into the kid's room, and he had like 22 letters from Master Kovar up on the wall. Wow. Nobody does that with emails, right? Nobody prints out the email and cherishes it and frames it. The stories at Microsoft, they used to do that. The employees would frame Bill Gates' flame mail because he wasn't known for being kind or gentle either. But other than that, nobody saves an email or cherishes it.
Yes, sir. Okay, nice. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
But give everybody the backstory for a minute, though. If they weren't on yesterday, the problem was a mom and a stepdad were engaged with a young lady, and the dad wasn't involved, and they were trying to bail out.
So the mom says, the mom told me when I first signed this girl up, and this was a little less than a year ago. And yeah, I talked to the mom. I'm going through, all decision makers are here. This is stepdad, great. Will her dad be able to make it? Oh, he's not involved. He's not here. He's not this, not that. I damn near think the guy's, in Aruba, completely somewhere different. Well, come to find out, she's over there this summer consistently. Like, that's pretty much second home during the summer. And
Yeah.
the dad was not engaged at all with what we were doing here. So all of a sudden she like disappeared off of the Zoom classes. She's not making any Zoom classes. We don't get any real contact. Stepdad calls me and is a little upset. He's like, yeah, I'm paying all this money and she's not coming in the classes. So I'm thinking about, just canceling it or postponing it. And I'm just like, oh my God. One, I'm like, where'd this dad come from? And two, I'm trying to figure out what's going on and how to keep her in. So yeah, I realized how badly I messed up on my enrollment with them because there was a whole dad there that I didn't acknowledge at all. And it took a little while to get them in. She had some injury issues. So once we signed her up, it was like 6 months before she actually taken her first class.
Oh my.
Yeah. So in that time, I really wasn't, another dad, it completely left my mind. So all of a sudden this pops up and it's like, I messed up big time.
Yeah.
Something that I had no clue about came and bit us in the ass and almost forced us to lose a student at a time where obviously, we already had a big drop off. We were at the meeting where you're 25% or lower. So we're not doing it. We're trying to get ourselves back up. And that's something that we run into. So yeah, just not digging in deep enough, not trying to get that dad to come any way possible. So that's what happened.
Yeah, my rule of thumb, and this isn't a male female thing, but the divorced spouse, which is 95%, you're dealing with the mom, always lie to you when they say things like that, right? Every now and then it's true. The bum is in prison, or sadly he died or something. But usually you've got their pay, in our socioeconomic demographic that we would be pulling from for students anyway. Let me give it that disclaimer. But you almost always have, dad is paying the bills, paying part of the bills, has every other weekend, or has 50% custody, or maybe he gets 100% custody over the summer. Whatever it might be, is if you've got the other parent who isn't engaged in bringing them to graduations, isn't engaged in keeping them going over the summer, is engaged in knowing about and paying attention and applauding progress, it's a problem.
Sure. Oh, come to find out, he only lives like 20 minutes away. So that was the other thing. It's like, oh, what? You live like in the next county over, like in the next town over, right there? So yeah, it was.
Well, like I said, they always lie to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's why the line is, we require both parents, right? You have, it's not we require, it's not we like,
Yes, sir.
it's not it'd be nice if, oh, by the way, what about dad? Oh, he's not involved. What do you mean he's not involved? Well, I'm just going to be handling all this. Oh, okay. Well, is he involved financially? Well, yeah, he's okay. Does he have, do you have 100% custody, or does he have joint custody of some sort? No, he has joint. Oh, okay. Well, we require both parents to be involved, right?
And I always say we require, but when she hit me with the information, I stopped there and I didn't keep going. Like you're saying,
you believed somebody who was lying to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The other thing to remember, Master Oliver, is if a child ever has two households that they're going between, sometimes when they're divorced or separate, they have two households, they each need an enrollment folder.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And each need a set of the character worksheets to keep at that house. I even
well, and each parent needs to walk
giving them an extra uniform. So they had that at the other house. So when that parent brought them, they didn't say, oh, I forgot my uniform at my mom's house, that kind of thing. So, keep those things. We're in a different society now than before. So we got to be aware of those kind of things and be a little sensitive.
Yes, sir.
Pastor Oliver, Steve had a question too.
Go
Steve,
ahead.
you had a couple of posts though, so I'm a little confused which topic you're looking to. If you could kind of chime in and
Yes,
help me.
sir. Yes, sir. I would just, and it can be now or it can just be later on the site if we don't have time now. But I posted my, I'm working on key result areas for my, I took one of my instructors that actually made her into the program director now. So we could kind of follow the model more. And I'm writing the KRAs in there, and I have it almost done, but I was looking for maybe a little input, make sure I put the best product forth when I actually brief her on, okay, these are all the things you're going to be accountable for,
Maybe it's just me, but you lost me. So say that again a little
too.
different way.
So I wrote,
Go to one question first. We'll do one at a time rather than the whole thing.
I think it was one question, but I'm not sure what the question
yes, sir. It's one question. So I crafted a document for my new program director called Key Result Area. It's like a duty description, but with accountable bullets instead of just a duty description.
Good. Okay.
And I posted it to the site because it's almost done. I just wanted to see if you guys had anything to add or even could help me with what I should put for some of the stats on there. If you just click that, it'll open, Bob, thank you. So this is what I'm working on. And I just wanted to see if you guys had any input on anything important that I might be missing before.
Since there is so many things there, I think it would be an easy thing for everybody to look or anybody to look and then add what they think is missing. I think to cover every one of those right now and then come up with it might be a little much.
Well, yeah. Let me ask you two questions. This is a new full-time staff member?
Yes, sir. And she's not new though. Here's what really happened. The long story short, Cliff Note version, this was the head instructor of my second school, my satellite school that got closed during this whole thing. When I pulled it back in here, I had 2 instructors. But then I realized that it would be a lot more, especially when we did the reorganization that y'all helped me with. And now I have a white belt orientation side.
Well, it's beautiful. And by the way, kudos for fast action. That was fabulous.
Thank you, sir.
Some of you may know Lloyd Irving, and when I first worked with Lloyd, his school was doing $7,000 a month, by the way. But one of the things that I noticed about, to his great credit, is we would be talking about a topic, and then on the break he'd be in the hall calling the school back in Maryland, telling them changes to make. Right. So literally, it was like 4 times a day or 5 times a day, he was communicating on implementation steps. He was the most immediate implementer that I've ever seen. I've always tried to, I did a lot of this stuff with Jay Abraham and more with Dan Kennedy, et cetera. I've always tried to, okay, here's something we're going to do, boom. But Lloyd, I mean, for God's sake, he was in one of the meetings with me and Dan Kennedy, and he heard something about a radio or a TV spot. And literally he went and booked studio time in Cleveland and had them FedEx the spot and changed the commercial the next day on Saturday in Cleveland, and then FedExed it back to air on Monday. So that speed of implementation is the most important thing. Tim Kovar, Dave Kovar's brother, his complaint about me always was, because we shared things back and forth constantly. And one time we sat down in the meeting, he goes, you know what really pisses me off? I said, no, I don't know what pisses you off, Tim. I've never really seen you pissed off. You know, what pisses you off? He goes, all of the ideas you've ever gotten from us, you implemented about 1.5 months faster than we did. I said, well, it doesn't do any good to sit on. I mean, if it's a good idea, you put it out there, and if it's a bad idea, you throw it away, right?
And speaking of quick implementation, I got a text from Scott that the reason he got off the meeting is to go do those things you told him to go do for the school, for his Zoom meetings. Tell him in
the future to show his ass up for the meetings.
Well, and he has been, more for he is an advanced member. He's not not here.
I know.
But he did.
I tell him to show up to the right damn meetings. He hasn't been doing that either.
Well, I would say he's done a good job implementing and doing things. I mean, we all know that he's almost 100,000 a month now. It started at
Yeah.
22,000 and started
Yeah,
at 125 students. It's 450
yeah.
right before the
You're either
pandemic.
you're either growing or you're dying, ripe and rotting, or green and growing, or ripe and rotting.
That's why he's implementing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give him a hard time because he is.
Well, I'm happy to. I yelled at him yesterday. I'll yell at him.
That's your job, not mine.
Yeah. Strange role reversal.
I'm
But
the
Steve,
nice guy. You're the bad guy.
That is
yeah, which is a totally insane, farcical facade for anybody who knows you well. Steve, go back to what you're saying though, is without spending a little bit more time looking at it, I don't want to give specific feedback on what you have written there, but generally, let's take my personality versus Master Moody's. He's got an engineering background that should tell you a lot. But I always go back to a quote that I got from Tom Peters, probably in 1987 or something like that. He did the book In Search of Excellence, and then Passion for Excellence, and then Thriving. Okay, so but a bunch of really good ones. Passion for Excellence is one of those we used to use as a staff training book, by the way.
You recommend that, sir?
Oh, absolutely, if you can still get it. But there's a whole section on customer service and high performing schools and so forth. But his comment about operations manuals was operations manuals are only good for somebody to pull off the shelf and dust it off and look for who's to blame when something goes wrong, right? What you want is two things up front. You want a clear understanding about compensation, non-compete, non-solicitation, hours and so forth, right? And to me, if somebody's on a commission basis, they're on an incentive basis, it's all of the hours that are required. And if you get to 39 and a half hours, we're not talking about overtime, and we're not talking about you're pissed off because I need to clock out at 8:45 and we need to be here at 9:30, right? There's none of that kind of relationship. But the second thing is, as far as drafting a, what do you call it? What your roles and responsibilities are. You used a different term, which confused. Yeah, but roles and responsibilities or job descriptions, what I was looking for. In a martial arts school, generally, the job description, from my perspective, is you're going to primarily do this, but your job is to do anything and everything that's required for this school to thrive, which means grow the student body, grow each student individually to their maximum potential, to grow the revenue and to grow the bottom line. And really that usually means grow the revenue because they don't have much control over the expenses. And then what I don't want to hear is somebody who says, well, you said I was in charge of marketing and you just told me to go clean the bathrooms. Well, okay, yeah, but that's part of your responsibility, right? Is, a 7-year-old just got sick in the bathroom and he's teaching class and I'm doing an enrollment and you're up, right? So what you do have to make sure you do is you keep them in the mode of your role is everything it takes for this, school to thrive. And predominantly you're going to be doing this, but there's also all these other things. So you need to be on backup as program director. You need to be predominantly leading the pack on marketing. Let's say you need to be on backup to teach classes. So if the head instructor gets hit by a bus, or has a family emergency or something, right? I mean, so you want to make sure that in your orientation with them, you're not teaching them to whine about something came up that they didn't think was that's not my job, right? Because their job is anything that needs to be done. Yes. Short of, I've never been one to, have people who work for me do personal errands for me and stuff like that, unless it was, we have I'm still setting up the tournament and my suit is at the dry cleaners for tomorrow night's show. I need somebody to go get it. Would you mind? Stuff like that. But you want them really focused on your job is everything it takes to grow the student body, keep them engaged, and help the revenue grow here.
That's why the last line, no matter how many things you list, the last line is plus any additional duties in getting more enrollments or keeping retention and renewals and getting the gross up. And if you add that bottom line to it, then there's nothing you can ask them to do that has to do with getting the gross of the school up, marketing or getting more intros or enrollments, or retaining the students and renewing them.
Yeah, generally, and this is pushing the topic a little bit, but anything that the big company down the street has the HR department do to check all the boxes is shit that's a waste of time that we shouldn't be doing.
Yes, sir.
Right? When I was doing the MBA, you know, it was a bunch of them were HP and US West and one thing or another. US West is one of the baby bells, is now CenturyLink. But half of their staff was spending half their time on diversity training and this, that, and the other thing. And all that stuff is proven not to do anything anyway. It's totally a waste of time. It's just checking the box in case they get sued. But most of that checking the boxes, annual performance up reviews, all that stuff is a waste of time in our environment, right? You're much more, you know, small team oriented, and you want to be, if you're doing performance reviews, which you should be, it should be at the end of every night, and it should be at the end of every week. Yes. And it's more like somebody's, you know, bowling, and they're seeing whether they got a strike or a spare, you know, every time they throw the ball, and they're getting immediate feedback, right? It shouldn't be any kind of more bureaucratic corporate type of stuff, because that just doesn't do them any good either. Yeah. It's just that an attorney came in and some government bureaucrat came in and some HR person with a, you know, Ivy League degree came in and implemented a bunch of BS that doesn't do anything other than cover their butt.
Yeah, I think I certainly err the other way. You know, I from bureaucracy type stuff, but I actually, it was Dave Ramsey's Entre Leadership book that he talked about key result areas.
Yeah.
For small teams specifically, and just to make sure that they know the 3 or 4 things that are their main, like this is what you're accountable for, this is what, and in our environment, I just have found that like everybody would just like to teach, right? If really, you know, so, and now, especially that I was transitioning here into a program director role, I wanted to make sure that those things, but like some of the things that I'm not even positive what they should be. While I've heard you is like the you know, total number of first to second intro, second to, you know, like the types of, like maybe even have some of the percentages in there.
Yeah. Rachel, jump in there.
Yeah, I know it was a while ago, but I remember Grandmaster Smith one time kind of explaining the program director's role. And I think this is we're training a new program director. I think it was really important for me then, and something I've been trying to get across to her is the role of program director is to guide the student from the very beginning through the process to black belt. And I think that's like a really key thing for them to understand, that from the moment they walk in, that's the person who's greeting them, making them feel comfortable, getting them with a buddy or whatever your system is, helping them through the first few classes, renewal prepping, that kind of side of things, but guiding them through the process to black belt.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Good, Rachel.
And a good recommendation is Zig Ziglar has a book from years ago called, I think, Top Performance, which is probably in the same vein of his performance agreements that he would have with people and one thing or another. And there's a number of them that are really good. What you want to always have is a really good comprehensive training process up front, and then every 13 weeks, essentially. So 4 times a year, you're retraining them on everything, right? And then you're right. People who go to work for a martial arts school think, oh, wow, I get to play karate all day or whatever it might be, right? They don't view this as, you know, with our new franchisees coming into Mile High Karate, I always have to sit down, you know, over lunch usually and say, look, you are getting into the business of marketing martial arts. You're not getting in the business of training in martial arts. To some extent, you're getting in the business of training other people in martial arts, but really what you're getting in the business of is marketing martial arts and keeping people in martial arts. So having that conversation with them, you know, when you were a brown belt, this was playing karate. You know, the business of running a martial arts school is marketing to bring new people in and keeping the ones we've got, right? That was Peter Drucker's. You know, the purpose of any business is to create a new client and to keep them. You really want to have that clarity in their communication. And school owners, by the way, are just as bad. You know, they'll spend all day long working on their third-degree black belt curriculum because it's fun. And then, oh, wow, we went the whole month, we didn't do any marketing. No. You know, you go to bed every night, putting in your subconscious, and you wake up every morning with a blank legal pad on what can I do today to do additional marketing, get more people in here. And then the second question is what can we do today to keep the students we've got? And to develop the curriculum on the, you know, people who've been around for 12 years. You know, not that it's unimportant, but it's not terribly important, right? Okay, on that note, I think we're good. And Master Smith was going to remind everybody, I think, that a week from next Wednesday, we're also going to do a follow-up from yesterday. Whatever date that is, Master Smith, you probably have it in front of you since you seem to remember these things much better than I do.
The 29th? Let me look real quick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
29th.
No, 24th,
29th.
3rd, 2nd, 29th?
29.
2 weeks, sir.
29th.
Wow, okay.
This did yesterday, and it's
Holy
2
crap,
weeks.
it's the 16th of the month.
Right now.
There you go. On the 29th of July.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I might add one thing. If your numbers are off of what you thought you were going to do for 2020, you've got the second half of 2020 to make up for the first half, right? And we often did half of our cash flow in November, December for the year. Maybe not quite that much, but you know, huge renewal blitz at the end of the year, and always late August through October is prime enrollment months. So you know, there's plenty of time to make up for anything that you were weak on in the spring. Okay.
Yeah, we always put a lot of emphasis on goals, and if you put them monthly and quarterly, and then semi, and then you got your third quarter, 3/4, and then your semi-annual, all the way to your annual. So you got plenty of times to get back on track and get things up to speed.
Exactly.
And, Delfino, I think we're going to talk for a few minutes. So if you want to, we'll hop off. Or can we just stop the recording?
We could just stop the recording. It's official.